Chapter 15, Beneath the Legend. The next morning at 10 a.m., inside an office building in Magic City. Lucas had just finished signing a lease with the agent and landlord. He was now sitting on the couch chatting with Anna and Rachel. "Lucas, this office must cost quite a bit each month, huh?" Anna asked casually, looking around at the layout. "Yeah, I signed for 3 months for now. The rent's manageable. It's the development PCs and other equipment that cost a lot." The rent was about 70 cents per square meter per day. He rented 2 connected rooms, totaling 160 square meters. Just the rent alone came to around $3,300 per month, not including the $2.80 per square meter monthly property fee. Sure, in a smaller city, that might only cost 1/10 of that. But that wasn't realistic. The talent pool in small cities couldn't compare to big ones. "No worries, my company just shut down anyway. I've got dev kits and machines lying around unused. Lucas, you can take whatever you need, just give me a little something for them," Anna said generously from the side. "But seriously, is it just the 2 of us doing all the development in this company?" Anna asked Lucas. Right now, the company had a total of 4 people, including himself. He and Anna were in charge of game development. The other 2 were from Anna's old company. One handled finance and admin, the other took care of operations. After testing their skills, Lucas decided to bring both of them on board. "Yeah, right now it's just the 2 of us. What we're really missing is a lead artist," Lucas sighed, glancing over at Rachel, who was holding an ice cream. In Lucas's plan, besides himself, he needed someone with solid art skills. And Rachel was exactly the person he had in mind. As for the small team of only 3 people, Lucas wasn't worried at all. The game industry in this world was different from his past life. A 3-person core team was enough for what he had in mind. He could handle the numbers, level design, and core gameplay systems himself. As for most of the heavy art tasks like modeling, those could be outsourced. Those jobs didn't require too much technical skill, just lots of time. And while outsourcing would cost more money, Lucas would rather spend cash than waste time. The only question left was whether he could reel Rachel into the team. After seeing her art skills during the development of Mirror, Lucas had his eyes set on her. "That's right, Rachel, join us." "Wait, Boss Chen, what's our company called again?" Anna suddenly asked. "Nebula Games," Lucas replied, a bit helplessly. "Actually, Senpai, I don't think there's much difference between manga and games," Lucas said seriously, looking at Rachel. "Both are just ways to bring the stories in your heart to life, for readers or players. And in the future, Nebula Games will also work on manga. We'll release manga volumes based on some of our games. If you're interested, you can totally take charge of that too." Game-to-manga spin-offs or manga-based games, it was all pretty normal. And unlike his previous world, where manga-based games were mostly made just to milk fans, in this parallel world, Lucas found that manga-based games actually stood out in a good way, even if other parts of the industry lagged behind. Rachel looked tempted by what he said. After thinking for a bit, she nodded and said, "Then I guess I'll have to start calling you Boss Lucas, huh?" "Call me whatever feels natural, Senpai," Lucas said with a smile, happy that she agreed to join. "Rachel, why'd you say yes so quickly? I've tried to pitch you the same kind of dream before," Anna said, totally speechless. Even though Rachel joining made her happy, the truth was she had tried to talk her into this so many times and failed, yet Lucas convinced her just like that. "Anna, you were just selling dreams. Even if you had one successful game, I still wouldn't jump in without thinking." Rachel rolled her eyes. Lucas at least had Mirror as a foundation, plus he had a clear vision for where the company was headed. Meanwhile, your company kept shrinking the more games you made. "All right, to celebrate Senpai joining us, let's talk about what's coming next," Lucas said, looking at both of them. Even though they had just joined and didn't even have equipment yet, both Anna and Rachel were paying full attention, clearly excited. After all, they didn't come here just to coast, they came to achieve something. "Our next project is a new game, a meta game," Lucas said. Both Anna and Rachel looked confused. "Meta game? A meta game? We're not making another R18 game," Rachel was surprised. "Of course not, the R18 game was just our way to get started," Lucas shook his head. He had no plans to turn the company into something like Illusion. But Boss Lucas, what exactly is a metagame? Anna looked totally lost. She had made 3 games before and even held a game designer title. But she had never even heard of something called a metagame. Rachel didn't even try to hide her confusion. To put it simply, a metagame is when a game breaks out of its own world and interacts directly with the player, Lucas explained. It's like Don Quixote, where the author steps into the story and comments on the plot now and then. Breaking the fourth wall, Anna still looked unsure, but Rachel seemed to get the idea. That's right, Lucas nodded with a smile. When it came to metagames, Lucas had looked into it a bit in this parallel world. Some types already existed, but they hadn't formed a clear category yet. Even in novels and comics, similar ideas could be found, but they also hadn't become their own genre. Our next project is a metagame called Undertale. I'll explain more details when we officially start working on it. Of course, besides Undertale, we'll also be making a DLC character pack for Magic Mirror to take advantage of the current hype and sell a bit more. Chapter 16, Picking a Fight on Purpose. In the meeting room, Lucas was explaining Undertale to Anna and Rachel. As for Mirror, there wasn't much to worry about. They just needed to follow the previous setup and add new character art and dialogue. Most of their time from now on would be focused on developing Undertale. Undertale was originally made by a solo indie developer in Lucas's past life. But it touched players all over the world and became a classic metagame. Unlike other metagames like Pony Island, isekai, or the Stanley Parable, Undertale combined meta elements and RPG elements in a way that changed how players saw traditional RPGs. Its core idea was pretty clear. The heart of Undertale was the story and the way it played with meta elements. Gameplay was more like a side dish. Still, Lucas planned to improve a few things from the original version. For example, the art style. Compared to the original, the visuals definitely needed an upgrade. The pixel graphics and hand-drawn lines in the original Undertale weren't a creative choice. It was just because the developer had no money. After the game blew up, critics and the media started praising its unique art style, but that was just nonsense. Pixel graphics aren't always low budget. Take Octopath Traveler, for example, which used pixel art to mix a modern and retro look. Other nostalgic games use it on purpose too. But for a story-focused meta game like this, better visuals would only make the experience better. Games like Minecraft use pixel graphics because it fits the block-building gameplay. But Undertale's look clearly wasn't about supporting the gameplay, it was just a compromise. That said, Undertale's story and music were truly great. The final battle theme with Sans, Megalovania, and Undyne's battle against a true hero were both unforgettable. After explaining some of the key elements of Undertale to them, Lucas also showed Rachel the character design sketches. There was the kind and gentle goat mom, the king who looked friendly at first but turned into a trident-wielding war god in battle, 2 skeleton brothers, one tall, one short, and a smiling flower who looked cute but was totally twisted inside. Lucas would personally take charge of the main character designs. As for the regular monsters, those would be handled by outsourced artists. As long as they met the standard, he'd approve them. Next was the story structure. There were several paths: normal route, pacifist route, genocide route, and hypocrite route. Lucas used the memory capsules he drew from the system to rebuild the story for each path. The rest of the job would be for Anna to fill in the details. Once everyone knew their role, Lucas sat back down and started working in the official engine's backend, setting up the foundation for Undertale. Rachel, was this how you guys developed Mirror 2? Anna was still a little shocked as she looked at the super detailed draft in front of her. Rachel, who was already sketching based on the character reference sheet, looked confused. Yeah, why? What's the problem, Anna? The problem is this is way too smooth. The plan is so clear. Anna's eyes widened, though she kept her voice low. Even though Undertale felt like a small-scale game, it all felt so organized, almost like even a dog could help make it. Thinking back to the chaos in her last company's projects, Anna suddenly wondered if all those people she hired were just pretending to work. While letting that thought stew in the back of her mind, Anna quietly read through Undertale's story draft, thinking about how she should fill it in. Meanwhile, Lucas wasn't thinking about any of that. He was busy testing things out in the official game engine. Compared to before, the amount of computing power available to him had increased by about 20 times. Right now, the system shows 0.1024 MB of usable resources. In the old world's terms, that's about 1 GB, but Lucas had already gone through the tutorials and updates. In this parallel world, that amount of resources was actually more than enough. If you wanted more, though, you'd either have to raise your designer rank or spend money. And how do you level up? Either you slowly grind it out, which basically means gaining experience over time, or you earn well-known awards, or do something that really moves the game industry forward. In a way, the release of Mirror did push the adult game scene towards something new. After getting a rough understanding of everything, Lucas shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He turned his focus to developing Undertale. As far as indie games go, this one wasn't too hard for Lucas. With the tech level of this parallel world, building a game like that wouldn't take much time or effort. The real-time syncs would be the story text, character art, and music. Because in Undertale, the music is genuinely great. That's something you see a lot in other indie games too. Story, music, and creative gameplay, these are the three key weapons of indie games. Anna, who is this guy trash-talking us? Some troll looking for attention. He's probably jealous of Mirror's sales, and now that his own game is about to release, he's using this to stir up drama. He's done this kind of thing before. Lucas noticed the noise coming from Anna and Rachel's side and got curious. What's going on? When he walked over, Anna picked up Rachel's phone and handed it to him. Here, this guy's just trying to start trouble. Lucas took the phone. It was showing a reposted video by a media outlet called Game Times. He clicked play. On screen, a middle-aged man was reviewing a game, with the character art from Mirror, though fully clothed. To grab players' attention, some game designers these days will stoop to anything. This is vulgar, incredibly vulgar. Game development is an art. Calling something like this a game is an insult to the industry. Do designers like this actually push the industry forward? No, they don't. If something like this appeared in my upcoming game Blossom, I'd be too ashamed to show my face. That's why I hope more game designers stop chasing cheap tricks, and instead focus on how to make real quality games, not this kind of garbage just to boost sales. The whole clip was about 2 minutes long, filled with his self-righteous rants. But when Lucas scrolled through the comments, he found the interesting part. Aside from a few fans cheering the guy on, a lot of people were roasting him. Bell the blabbermouth's at it again. Vulgar, guess I'll have to check it out myself. When others make a game, it's trash. When I make a game, it's art. Come on, just say it. When's your new game dropping? Dude upstairs, clearly you weren't paying attention. He already slipped it in. Blossom is the name. After watching the video, reading the comments, and listening to Anna's breakdown, Lucas pretty much figured it out. The guy's name was Buzz Bell, a designer under the FlowArt Studio brand, though actually he was the studio's owner. His reputation in the gaming world was very mixed. To be fair, he had made some decent games in the past. In recent years, while his games haven't exactly blown up, the quality has never been bad either. What really ruins things is how Bell acts as a person. He often goes out of his way to pick popular and controversial games just to talk trash about them, using that attention to promote his own work. And it's not just Lucas, plenty of other game developers have been targeted by him too. Chapter 17, Isn't it normal for young people to be fired up? This is so infuriating. How can people like this even exist? Rachel was clearly angry. After all, she had worked on Mirror too. He's just being sneaky, chasing clout. Doesn't matter if people hate him or support him, Anna said, trying to calm Rachel down. Exactly, there are people like that in every field, Lucas said with a grin. So Lucas, we're just going to let this slide. Rachel was feeling frustrated. If they didn't fight back, it felt like they were letting someone step all over them. But if they did respond, wouldn't that be exactly what he wanted? Of course not, he wants a fight. Let's give him one, Lucas chuckled, then opened his official blog and posted a message. To those so-called veterans, games are art, yes, but they're also products. Just like movies, some are artistic and some are commercial. Mira never claimed to be art in the first place. And if certain veterans insist their work is art, then maybe they should explain why their art is getting such bad scores. Could it be the so-called rude younger generation just aren't buying it? After posting that, Lucas also updated Mira's store description. Mostly because his blog didn't have many followers, just over 1,000, most of whom followed him for his earlier comics. Even though Mira was doing well in sales, most adult game players don't really care about the developers behind the games. When Anna and Rachel saw Lucas's blog post, they were both stunned. "Lucas, didn't you say the guy was doing this on purpose? Isn't this exactly what he wants?" Rachel asked, confused. "Well, the guy's already taken a swing at me. If I don't respond, wouldn't that make me look weak?" Lucas shrugged, still smiling. Then Anna's eyes lit up. "Undertale isn't a huge game, but if we pull some overtime, we can finish enough content to get things moving." Lucas nodded. "Right, I've been wondering how to promote it, and now this is free publicity. No reason not to take advantage of it." "But yeah, we'll all need to hustle for the next few days," Lucas added. "It's just like business. When the top two fight, it's usually number 3 who gets taken out. It's no different in the game world. The worst thing isn't being criticized, it's being ignored." And when it came to Undertale's quality, Lucas felt pretty confident. So, while the three of them were diving into full-on crunch mode, Lucas's blog post slowly started gaining attention. Even though not many people followed his blog, Mira had a lot of players recently, and some of them followed the trail back to it. Plus, Bell had already been stirring things up about Mira, so a lot of people were quietly watching to see if Lucas would say anything. And sure enough, he gave them something to talk about. At first, Bell's post was mostly just a joke to the public. He'd done this kind of thing before. But Lucas's direct reply made it a whole different situation. Anyone could tell that Lucas was clearly calling out Bell. It takes two to tango, and Lucas's clapback instantly caught the attention of tons of curious onlookers. Media outlets quickly picked up the story, and soon even casual players were chiming in too. Everyone had something to say. "Holy crap, what's going on here? They're fighting, they're actually fighting. So Lucas is the creator of Mira. Hey, does this Lucas guy have some kind of background, or what? Nope, why? Then why are you making such a big deal out of it? Haha, what Lucas said was savage." Not wrong, honestly. Bell the Blabbermouth made 2 decent games, but calling them art is a huge stretch. Backing Lucas all the way. What's wrong with liking adult games? Can't wait for a sequel and some new DLC characters. I don't know, I think Bell the Blabbermouth wasn't really wrong this time. These kinds of adult games just aren't very respectable. But easy to act high and mighty once your pants are back on. Wasn't it Bell who started this whole drama? After Lucas replied, the whole topic blew up even more, catching the attention of a lot of players. Many of them took Lucas's side. Bell didn't have the best reputation in the industry, either among devs or players. But there were still some who couldn't stand Lucas and took Bell's side instead. After all, a game like Mira was bound to stir controversy. One thing was clear, though. Lucas and Bell had suddenly become the center of attention, both among the media and gamers. It might be an exaggeration to say the entire game industry was focused on it, but anyone keeping an eye on the indie scene had definitely heard about what was going on. Lucas's official social media account gained over 100,000 followers overnight. Meanwhile, in the Flow Art studio office, Bell's assistant brought him up to speed on everything that had happened. But instead of getting angry, Bell looked excited. "Perfect, this is exactly the kind of young designer I wanted. Fresh, a little famous and full of fire. If you're young and not fired up, are you even young?" Bell said, clearly pleased. Why did he do that interview online in the first place? It was all for attention. And now look, it worked. How long had it been since anyone jumped in to stir the pot like this? Having someone to play off is a whole different game than going solo. Just look at how eager the media are to report on this now. Before, he even bought some traffic to try and kick things off. But it barely caused a ripple, and now, with one reply, the traffic started pouring in on its own. Still, he needed to add more fuel to the fire, get this buzz going even hotter. Grinning, Bell opened his social account and posted, "Some game designers are really good at taking things out of context. I never said my game was art. I only said I hope to one day create a game that could be called art. But looking at certain people's games, I doubt they'll ever understand what it takes to make a real game, instead of just relying on clever little tricks." After posting that, Bell even tagged Lucas on purpose. But what surprised him was how fast Lucas replied, barely 5 minutes later, and Bell got tagged right back. "This is something I should be saying too. My new game Undertale will officially launch on July 15th. Maybe some designers can take a look and decide for themselves whether it counts as a real game and whether it has any artistic value." Bell's smile froze on his face. That move felt very familiar. Chapter 18, Game Experience. After Lucas announced the existence of Undertale, regular players didn't really think much of it yet. They just felt like things were heating up. This wasn't just trash talk anymore, it was an all-out fight. But for the more experienced gaming media, their reaction was basically, what the hell just happened? They had thought it was just a young guy getting fired up and talking back. Turns out it was all a carefully planned move to grab attention. But even knowing that, they weren't about to miss out on this big trending topic. With all kinds of media coverage, the hype around Undertale and Blossom quickly took off. And among the more old-school outlets, Bell was starting to get seriously annoyed. Now the two games were completely tied together. And the reason their popularity shot up so fast wasn't just because of the back and forth between Lucas and Bell on social media. The bigger reason was that Bell had spent quite a lot of money promoting his game. But now, all that buzz was basically feeding Undertale instead. So, on July 15th, Undertale officially launched on the main game store platform. Compared to Blossom, which was being handled by Bell's side, Undertale came out 3 days earlier. A solid head start. Many game devs and players were watching closely to see how Undertale would perform. After all, this wasn't another gentleman game like Mirror. Even though Mirror did really well, it was still an 18+ game at the end of the day. Now everyone was curious, what kind of quality would this Undertale game from Lucas really have? At a gaming media company called GameSpace, a new editor named William was sitting at his desk, getting ready to write a review of Undertale. Even though it was just a small indie game, the hype was hard to ignore. The only thing bothering William was that it happened to be Sunday. Which meant overtime. Well, whatever, at least there's overtime pay, he sighed as he glanced at the clock. He remembered what his editor-in-chief had told him, "We pay good overtime, just bear with it." After tidying up the mess on his desk, William opened up the game called Undertale. It started with a simple logo, a black starry sky background, with the words Nebula Games in big letters and a line of English text below. After a quick black screen, an old-looking picture appeared. It showed a little girl holding a spear, her face unclear. Next to her was a faceless animal. It looked kind of like a rabbit, a dog, or maybe a goat. William stared at the image, trying to guess. Then, like a comic book, the opening cutscene started flipping pages. Guess they didn't have the budget for CG animation, so they went with a comic-style intro instead. Actually, not bad, William thought. Just from this intro alone, he already had a good first impression of Undertale. At least this overtime shift probably wasn't going to be painful. The picture started flipping. The background music started playing, simple notes, but it had a nice vibe to it. A long, long time ago, the Earth was ruled by two races, humans and monsters. One day, a war broke out between the two. After a long fight, humans won, and they sealed the monsters underground. And now, many years have passed. Mount Ebot 201X, they say anyone who climbs this mountain never comes back. A simple backstory, nothing too fancy. After namming the game's main character, you see them waking up on a patch of grass covered in golden flower petals. Following the earlier game controls, William moved the character forward. At what looked like the entrance to a castle, a small sunflower appeared. "Hello, I'm Flowey." Hey. "You must be new to the underground, huh? Gosh, you must be so confused. Looks like someone's gotta teach you how things work around here." Flowey has no choice but to do it herself. "Ready, let's begin." What a weird little character. William couldn't help thinking as he looked at the sunflower-like face in front of him. "LV makes you stronger, shouldn't that stand for level? What's this love thing?" Looking at Flowey's dialogue, William was a bit confused. Trying to sound deep. And what are friendship pellets supposed to be? Something about this flower doesn't sit right. William had his doubts, and the game quickly confirmed them. With a creepy laugh, the once friendly-looking flower suddenly changed its face. After saying LV goes up by collecting friendship pellets, it showed its real colors. The moment William touched the white pellets, his HP dropped to 1. "You idiot, in this world it's kill or be killed. Who would pass up a chance like this?" "Die." As expected, someone was probably going to show up to save the day. A classic RPG-style scripted scene. William stared at the heart icon, now surrounded by dozens of white pellets. His face didn't change at all. The battle part of the game, he already figured it out. It played kind of like a rhythm game where you dodge incoming attacks. But the story setup, kind of basic, just your standard old-school RPG. Sure enough, right as the white bullets were about to hit him, his HP suddenly shot back up to full, and all the bullets vanished. The flower looked completely dumbfounded. After a few dramatic expressions, it got blasted away by a fireball. Then a woman with ram-like horns appeared and saved the main character. What a cruel creature, hurting such a weak and helpless child. "Don't be afraid, my child. I am Toriel, caretaker of the ruins. I come here every day to see if anyone's fallen down. It's been a long time since a human last showed up. Come, let me guide you through this underground cemetery. Come this way." After a brief conversation, the goat woman named Toriel led William down the path ahead. She explained how to solve puzzles and use mechanisms. She also told him that when he runs into enemies, fighting isn't the only option. He could try talking to them instead. The puzzles were super simple, just pushing stones, pulling levers, or stepping carefully to avoid the leaves. This isn't a painful journey or anything, but it's just so boring. Honestly, even the match 3 game in Mirror was more fun than this. William let out a sigh. When he ran into a monster, he didn't bother with talking or showing mercy. He went straight into battle. So far, the only parts he found even slightly interesting were the Flowey's exaggerated expressions at the start and the combat system. Even though it was like playing dodgeball, different monsters had their own styles of fighting. For example, the frog would just hop around in a little box during its turn. You could say the fighting style really fit the monster's look. "Please don't let this game drag on forever. I just want to finish it and clock out early," William muttered with a sigh, shaking his head. Chapter 19, Shock. Even though William hadn't been working long as a game editor, he'd played a ton of games by now. And judging from what he'd seen in Undertale so far, he could clearly pick up on some of its traits. First was the game's overall polish. Not the story or content, just the surface stuff like visuals and controls. Undertale was okay in that regard, about what you'd expect from an indie game. But content-wise, William honestly felt it was pretty unimpressive so far. The puzzles, yeah, they were just intro-level tutorial stuff, but they were painfully dull. Just moving rocks and pulling switches. As for the combat, the game gave you mercy and dialogue options. Players didn't have to kill the monsters. But based on William's gaming experience, this just seemed like a basic morality system. High morality gets you a good ending, low morality gives you a bad one. Nothing special, and the story itself felt like your usual dungeon-crawling monster-slaying setup. After taking down a few weak monsters, William read the post-battle text, then moved on without thinking much. As a game editor, his goal was just to finish the game and see how the overall flow felt. Even though peaceful options were available, William always went with the easiest method, just fight. After all, isn't grinding and leveling up the whole point of an RPG? While he was moving forward, the goat mom kept popping up, asking the main character what kind of food they liked, or if they had any allergies. After exploring a while, William let out a small sigh and shook his head. He had a feeling that Mira's success was just a one-time fluke. Because right now Undertale just felt bland, playable but not impressive. There was nothing left to discover in the whole castle. No cool puzzles, no surprising twists. Just a simple discovery, the door leading to the underground world. After this scene triggered, the goat mom who had saved the main character earlier said the outside world was dangerous, and that if they really wanted to leave, they had to prove they could protect themselves. If you agreed, it led into a battle. Just like before, you could choose to show mercy in the fight with Toriel, the goat mom. Unlike the usual monsters, William actually liked this goat mom character. So he didn't attack her, but he quickly noticed that choosing mercy didn't seem to do anything. He tapped it a few times, but the goat mom kept attacking. So does he have to fight back? Or maybe it's one of those scripted scenes. Maybe you have to bring her HP to 0 to trigger the story. William guessed while trying to hit her. The first hit took off about 1/10 of her health. The second hit chipped off another small bit. The third hit left him stunned. Because with that hit, her health bar went straight to 0. Goat Mom, now kneeling with one leg on the ground, still worried about the main character, and told them to leave quickly. Then she turned into shards and vanished into thin air. What just happened? Why did she die? Wasn't this supposed to be a no-kill route? Or maybe I was supposed to keep using mercy? The game didn't give any hints, but as an experienced gamer, William quickly thought of a possible mechanic. So to test his theory, he loaded his previous save. Just like before, he went into the same fight. This time, William didn't attack, he just kept clicking mercy. And as the turns went on, Goat Mom's attacks got faster and more dangerous. At one point, William accidentally ran into one of them. His HP dropped to just a sliver. But what happened next confirmed his thoughts. Goat Mom's attacks had started to avoid the red heart that represented the player. Even when William moved toward her attacks on purpose, she dodged him. So that's how it is. The player just has to survive a few rounds, and Goat Mom will never actually kill you. It's kind of ironic compared to the version where you kill her, especially when paired with the fact that her attacks avoid you. This feels a bit like Mirror, where it explores themes like good and evil and human nature. As a game editor, William also liked to look at things from a deeper angle. After dodging Goat Mom's attacks and hitting Mercy 14 times, he listened to the cheerful background music and watched the story that followed. He shook his head. In the game, when the main character insisted on leaving, Goat Mom finally stopped trying to stop her. She gently hugged the player and personally walked her out of the castle. She's clearly a new game dev. This event trigger is a bit rough, having to click mercy that many times. I get that it's meant to be hidden from the player, but William shook his head again. And if you don't want players to notice, why make the attacks avoid the player? That's like exposing the secret on purpose. It's like pulling down your pants just to fart. Thinking back to the Goat Mom boss fight, William started pointing out the flaws. In his opinion, if the dev had only used one of those mechanics, it would have been fine. But using both just made it backfire. Then something happened that made him freeze in his chair. Because the next scene completely overturned what he thought he knew. Flowey, who tried to kill the main character earlier, showed up again. But what shocked William wasn't the character, it was what the flower said. Smart, Suo tilde smart. You really think you're clever, huh? In this world, it's kill or be killed. That's the only reason you've been able to do whatever you want. You're feeling real good about yourself, aren't you? Because you just spared someone's life. Heh, but don't act like you're so high and mighty. Because I know everything, I know exactly what you've done. You already killed her once. But then you regretted it, so you went back in time, you wanted to start over. Ha, you really are a naive idiot. Do you think you're the only one with that kind of power? This power to reshape the world. It all comes from your own will, your godlike ability, your power to save. I used to think I was the only one with this kind of power, but now I can't save anymore. Clearly, your desire for this world is stronger than mine. All right, while you still have that power, go ahead and enjoy it. I'll be watching you. Chapter 20, The Shock of Breaking the Fourth Wall. What does that mean? It knows I loaded a save. It's talking to me, not the character in the game. Everything I've done has been tracked. William suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He even looked behind him at the empty office out of instinct. Clearly, the in-game character Chloe wasn't talking to the game's protagonist. She was talking directly to him, the player sitting in front of the screen. She knew what he had done. She even knew that he loaded an old save. Even though William knew this was just part of the game's design, he was still shocked. And what did Chloe mean when she said those things? That she had this power too. What is determination, really? While exploring the castle, he'd come across some glowing star-shaped icons. When he examined them, the message that usually popped up was, "It fills you with determination." In that moment, countless questions popped into his mind. But even more than that, he felt amazed. At first, he thought this was just a regular RPG. But with Chloe's appearance, it felt like the fourth wall had been completely shattered. What else would happen next? With that feeling in his heart, William kept playing. One unique character after another appeared in the game. There was Sans, the skeleton who shook his hand with a fart cushion, and Papyrus, who loved using puzzles to stop him. These two skeleton brothers left a deep impression. Sans looked super lazy and loved telling skeleton puns just to mess with his brother, Papyrus. Papyrus, on the other hand, was totally obsessed with puzzles and traps to block the player's progress. The funny part, when a puzzle actually managed to trap him, Papyrus would sometimes give away the answer himself. Then there was Undine, a fish-like warrior with a bit of a dramatic flair, who chased him relentlessly. Later, in the lava area, she passed out from dehydration, and right next to her was a water cooler. At that point, the player could choose whether or not to help her. In the lab, Dr. Alphys came across as awkward and shy, the perfect image of a shut-in. Later, during the quiz battle with the robot she built, the doctor would even secretly gesture the right answers to the player. And based on the final quiz question, it's also clear she has a crush on Undine, the fish-like warrior who's been chasing the main character. Then there was that ridiculous stage performance right before the robot boss fight under the moonlight. It totally caught William off guard. But what truly shocked him was the conversation with Sans in the gold-lined hallway just before the final boss fight. Up to that point, William had assumed Undertale just followed normal RPG rules. Even though Chloe's appearance earlier had surprised and impressed him, he had still played the game the same way he played any RPG. In RPGs, it's normal to fight monsters and level up, right? He let some enemies live if they seemed okay, like the spider girl or a few creatures he met on the way, but if something annoyed him or seemed like trouble, he didn't hesitate to kill it. But now, Sans's words made him realize he had completely misunderstood the whole thing. Exp wasn't short for experience points, it stood for execution points. And love wasn't a regular level, it actually meant level of violence. Every time he killed a monster, his execution points and violence level went up. Now his LV had reached 11. In that moment, William remembered what the goat mom had said at the start about being friends with monsters. The game had been dropping hints the whole time. Then there was the final boss, the king. He didn't seem evil at all and even acted super kind, asking again and again if the player was ready to fight. And if you said no, he'd smile and admit he wasn't ready either. But once you walked through the final door and confirmed you were ready, everything changed. The intense background music kicked in. A strange light fills the room. Twilight is shining through the barrier. It seems your journey is finally over. You are filled with determination. As the text faded away, the king opened his eyes and quietly said, "Goodbye, human." In an instant, like a god of war, his blood-red cape flared behind him, and he smashed the mercy button with his trident. He shattered your mercy and his own. No escape, this fight would end in death. The final boss was really hard. Even though William had played bullet-dodging games before, it was still intense and full of close calls. When he finally beat the king, the game gave him the choice to kill or spare him. Thinking of what the goat mom and Sans had said, William chose to spare him. The king was clearly shocked. He said he was willing to live peacefully with the goat mom and take care of the main character, forming a new family together in the underground world. It all felt warm and hopeful. But in the next moment, a flash of light slashed across the screen. The king's shocked face appeared, and Flowey showed up. Flowey killed the king. You idiot, you still haven't learned anything. In this world, it's kill or be killed. With Flowey's evil grin and laughter ringing in his ears, the game suddenly crashed right in front of William's stunned face. What just happened? A bug? Did the game break? Before William could figure it out, the game restarted by itself. But now the opening cutscene was creepy and strange. He went to the save screen, and what made it worse was, it wasn't even his save file. It said, Flowey LV 9999. It was Flowey's save. He picked Continue, and his character appeared inside a pitch-black background. When he reached the save point marked with a star, the game showed his save data. But the next second, the screen started shaking, and blood-red cracks spread out from the center of the save info. Then 5 words appeared on the screen: save file deleted. As the save shattered, Flowey reappeared on the screen. After absorbing the souls of 6 human children, Flowey now claimed to be a god. But in the game, his form was a weird and creepy monster. This was the real final boss battle. This fight was even harder than the one with the king. After dying, the game displayed a typical game over screen, along with a line of text. This was all just a nightmare, and you'll never wake up. Alongside the text came Flowey's terrifying laugh, and the whole screen was filled with ha-ha-ha everywhere. Then the game suddenly crashed and closed by itself. When reopening the game, Flowey would still speak directly to the player with more hopeless lines. Like, you think killing you once was enough for me? This world has no such thing as a perfect ending. To beat Flowey, the only way was to keep going, again and again, until the trapped souls of the other humans awakened, making it impossible for him to reload the save. Only then could you finally defeat this terrifying boss. After beating Flowey, you had the option to kill or spare him, but the ending stayed the same either way. The only difference was that if you chose to spare him, he'd tell you how to unlock the game's true pacifist route. With the final text appearing, the game officially ended. But William, sitting in front of the computer, still hadn't recovered from the shock. Stunning, that was the only word he could think of. Absolutely stunning. Breaking the fourth wall, deleting his save, crashing his game and Flowey's lines. For a moment, William really felt like this underground world was real, that these characters truly existed. And after that shock faded, what came next was curiosity. In the golden hallway, the conversation with Sans had already explained everything. So love meant level of violence, and exp meant execution points. Then what about the other 2 endings in the game? What were they like? Chapter 21, Overwhelming Praise. The next day, Lucas arrived at the office at 7:30 in the morning, but to his surprise, Anna and Rachel were already there before him. When they saw him walk through the door, both rushed over excitedly. It blew up, Boss Lucas, the reviews are amazing, Anna said, holding a laptop with an excited look. On the screen was the rating from the official App Store. 9.9, an insanely high score. And that wasn't even all. By the second day after launch, 2 gaming media outlets had already posted reviews of Undertale. What shocked everyone even more was that both gave it a perfect 10 out of 10. One of them, a site called GameSpace, even hyped it like crazy. In their review, they avoided spoilers, choosing instead to act like mysterious riddle makers the whole way through. But even without spoilers, they still used tons of over-the-top praise. One line said the reviewer sat in silence for a long time after finishing Undertale. They called it a game that broke the rules of traditional RPGs. A game that completely changed how players view the genre, proving that games could be this powerful. Even though it was a low-budget indie title, it gave an experience more emotional and unforgettable than most AAA blockbusters. Similar praise was all over Undertale's review section too. The comments were full of weird and confusing stuff. Like an unbelievable RPG, my back was still tingling when it ended. Crush your mercy and mine too. This fills you with determination. Sales are looking good, but we need to let it build some more buzz. Lucas smiled as he checked the numbers on the back end. 2,749 copies, not a huge number, but not bad either. Pretty normal, actually, even after the publicity stunt with Bell. All it really did was get more people to recognize the name Undertale. For most players, both Nebula Games and Lucas were complete unknowns. The only thing they had ever heard of was that one adult game. Also, Lucas priced Undertale at $10, just like it was in his last life. That's not expensive for an indie game, especially in this world where the economy is better than in his past life. Otherwise, the gaming industry wouldn't be this strong. 7 to 11 p.m. was prime time. The buzz created by the reviews from earlier helped the game heat up again, and this time slot just happened to be when most players had free time, perfect for checking out a new game. Before 7 p.m., Undertale was getting about 500 new sales per hour. After 7 p.m., that number more than doubled, shooting up to around 1,200 per hour. Total sales soon passed 14,000. At the same time, more and more reviews started popping up. Keep in mind, it had only been a day and a half since Undertale officially launched on the platform. In the private room of the Hot Pot place where they had their celebration dinner, Anna was pumped as she listened to the numbers Lucas was throwing out. Mira had sold insanely well before, sure, but back then she was just a spectator. But she was involved in Undertale from start to finish. Even though it kind of felt like tie a dog to a chair and it'll still win, the truth was, she did a ton of the story writing herself. That gave her a real sense of accomplishment. I wonder how far the total sales will go, Rachel said, sipping her juice. Just as excited. Feels like it could hit 1 million, Anna said, super hyped. At this rate, it's just a matter of time, Lucas nodded with a smile. So, unlike Lucas, who was calm and confident, many players and industry devs watching Undertale were completely freaking out after seeing the reviews. What the hell was going on? Over at Flow Art Studio, Bell's eyes were wide open, and he showed no signs of going home. Did Nebula Games pay people off? How much did they even spend? Buying positive reviews, paying off media outlets, Bell had done those things before too, but this was ridiculous. That was the first thought he had, and honestly, it was the same reaction most people had when they saw how well Undertale was doing. No one believed the game's quality alone could earn those kinds of reviews. It was just a small indie game, after all. But with a score like that, it looked like a masterpiece. Did Undertale, a low-budget game, really deserve all this? But of course, all this attention just made more players curious. What kind of game was Undertale, really? Once they got curious and tried it out, they usually ended up writing glowing reviews themselves, adding more fuel to the fire. The most direct way to see this, the sales data Lucas was tracking non-stop. Every hour he refreshed it, the numbers had jumped again. And even more importantly, the reviews. Almost all of them were positive. The game's rating stayed at 9.9, not dropping at all even with the surge in sales. As more players join a game, its rating usually drops over time. In general, an 8.5 is already considered solid. A 9 means it's a standout title, and anything above 9.5, that's entering masterpiece territory. Even though Undertale's sales were skyrocketing, its player rating was staying steady. Sure, it would probably drop a bit as more people played it, but still, it was seriously impressive. And in the store's comments section, players were sharing their thoughts loud and clear. I thought it was just a basic RPG where you fight monsters, but flowy showing up in the endings. They totally blew my mind. I checked this out because I was curious about Nebula Games and Lucas after Mirror, but Undertale, this showed me what a real game can be. Seriously, it changed how I think about RPGs. The only word I can use is unbelievable. Whatever you do, don't hurt the monsters. Trust me, you'll regret it. A fierce wind roars. Standing before you is a true hero. It feels explosive. I've got a feeling Undertale is going to be a massive hit. Birds are singing, flowers are blooming. A kid like you should be burning in hell. This fills you with determination. The design is so fresh and powerful. Player after player gave Undertale glowing reviews. Of course, a few bad ones slipped in too. It dropped the score by just 0.1, but compared to the flood of positive reviews, those few didn't matter at all. Chapter 22, Praise and Sales Double Win. As more and more players discovered Undertale, the game's numbers kept climbing fast. It had already made its way onto the recommended lists of several third-party platforms. Even though Lucas, just like in his past life, wasn't a fan of these parallel world platforms. Right now, putting Undertale on those platforms was all upside and no downside. You'd have to be a fool to leave that money on the table. Even if he had plans to shake up the industry, one thing was always part of the game: money. So Lucas chose a few third-party stores that were willing to be flexible. Even though he was a newcomer in the dev world, he wasn't just any ordinary game dev. First off, Mira had already guaranteed him a solid base. On top of that, the drama with Belle gave Undertale a big head start in visibility. So some platforms were even willing to adjust their cut of the revenue. That was one of the main reasons Lucas agreed to work with them. And based on how things were going, Undertale's sales were looking fantastic. So, while Lucas kept an eye on the numbers, a lot of indie devs in the scene were also shaken up by Undertale. In a small chat group for indie developers, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. I can only describe Undertale with 3 holy craps. I used to think Belle had a point, like, what kind of good game could this Lucas guy make? But now, man, it's insane. What's going on? Is it really that good? Are the scores fake? Fake? You serious? Maybe from a third-party site, but try faking a score on the official platform. Exactly, don't talk nonsense. If someone, faking, go fake one on the official store, I dare you, don't be surprised when your dev account gets blacklisted. If you haven't played it yet, you really should. It blew me away. I can only call it unbelievable. Honestly, I was planning to release my own game next week, but now, I think I need to take more time polishing it. Is it really that good? How do I put it? At first glance, it just looks like a simple game, but it actually has multiple endings. The first time through, it hits hard. The second time with the peaceful ending, it feels warm. The third time with the genocide route, it made me cry. People used to say Mirror changed the adult game scene. I laughed at that. But Undertale, I think it might actually kick off a whole trend in this kind of gameplay. Isn't that going a little too far? Are we really calling it genre-defining now? It may not have created a whole new genre, but it definitely brought it into the spotlight. And I believe that in the future, when people talk about this kind of game, Undertale will be a name no one can ignore. As people kept chatting, someone suddenly dropped a link in the group chat. Stop talking, check Lucas's official account. Holy crap, is he even human? Great reviews and high sales. Only 3 days in and it's already sold over 100,000 copies. That's insane. Everyone clicked the link and sure enough, it was Lucas's official post. Just a simple thank you message related to Undertale. Thanks to all the players for your support. Undertale has officially passed 100,000 copies sold, but this isn't the end. Lucas didn't bother hiding the numbers. For one, it wasn't some big secret. In a few days, third-party analytics firms would probably report something close anyway, might not be exact, but not far off. And more importantly, it was a great chance to boost the game's visibility. With such good word of mouth, it was the perfect time to add fuel to the fire. Sharing the numbers was clearly a smart way to stir up discussion. Once Lucas posted the sales figures, it wasn't just indie devs paying attention anymore. The media started taking notice too. A small unknown indie game, made by a guy known for adult games, who also got into a public spat with another dev. The buzz was too strong to ignore. And Undertale's stats were just incredible. Some media outlets that had brushed it off before were now eating their words. As for regular players who had tried the game, they only had one thing to say: Undertale truly deserved all its praise. The characters left a deep impression, especially the ending. It hit so hard. Before playing, no one could have imagined a game could do something like this. Everyone felt like they were witnessing something historic. Undertale might end up being a milestone in indie game history. Meanwhile, other media outlets scrambled to publish headlines like 100K copies sold in 3 days, a 9.9 rating. An indie masterpiece, a must-play for all gamers. A unique RPG that breaks all the rules. Player, I didn't play the game played me. An unbelievable game with unbelievable results. The first playthrough shocked me, the second warmed my heart, the third broke me, and the fourth made me think. No doubt about it, Undertale was a hit. At first, it was just media and player praise. Then it spread within the game dev community, since Undertale's design was totally different from other games. Not just in terms of story, but also how that story was told. Take Flowey, for example. He felt like he was talking directly to the player through the screen. That kind of design opened a window for every game developer who saw it. To be honest, the original Undertale wasn't even full of meta elements. Outside of the intro and the ending, the middle of the game was really focused on telling the stories of Sans, Papyrus, Undyne, and the others. And that's what gave Undertale a deeper sense of immersion than most meta-heavy games. When the secret of the ending is finally revealed, it hits the player with a huge emotional shock. And after each ending, the game quietly leaves behind something deeper, something to reflect on, something philosophical. This is the biggest feature of meta games. If we're just talking about meta elements, Undertale isn't as extreme as games like the Stanley Parable or Pony Island. But in this parallel world, the idea of meta games hasn't even started to take shape. So Undertale's meta design, combined with its story, hits players way harder than it did in the world Lucas came from. And once streaming platforms and video sites started showing parts of Undertale to the public, it only made the hype grow even more. Chapter 23, The Multiple Endings of Undertale. Even setting the meta stuff aside, Undertale's story on its own is already very well written. The game is filled with fun and memorable characters. Like Sans, who shakes hands with the main character using a whoopee cushion, and his brother Papyrus, who's obsessed with using puzzles to block the player's path. Sans comes off as super laid back and likes using skeleton-related puns to mess with his brother. Papyrus, on the other hand, takes great pride in making puzzle traps, but when the player doesn't engage or can't figure them out, he ends up giving away the answers himself. There's also the nerdy, shut-in scientist. But what really hits players hard is what Sans says in the Golden Hallway right before the final boss fight. It's here that Sans judges the player for everything they've done. And you learn from him that exp isn't experience points like in normal games, it actually stands for execution points. And LV doesn't just mean love either, it's short for level of violence. Every time you kill a monster, your execution points go up, and as they increase, your violence level rises too. It's not experience, and it's not character level, it's a measurement of how brutal you've been. This is where Undertale completely flips the standard RPG logic. In most RPGs, killing monsters to level up is just what you do. But in Undertale, it's totally different. Most new players end up getting the normal ending first, and feel the impact of Flowey's final reveal. But if, at the end of that normal route, the player chooses not to kill Flowey, they'll learn from him how to unlock the true pacifist ending. To get it, the player has to go through the whole game without killing a single monster, making friends with every one of them through conversation. And while going for that ending, players begin to realize that each monster has their own personality. Some of them may look scary, but they all have cute or funny sides. For example, Undyne is the perfect example of a tsundere. You listen here, human, being friends isn't enough. We're gonna be besties. I'll make sure you're totally hooked on me. This is my perfect revenge. Thanks to Papyrus egging her on, the legendary Royal Guard captain ends up welcoming the protagonist as a friend. She even throws in a full-on cooking lesson, though it burns her house down. The skeleton brothers, Goat Mom, Undyne. And especially when it comes to the final boss, the king and Goat Mom's son, it's where the game hits players the hardest. During that battle, when you die, the game doesn't just say, "Game over." Instead, you see a line of text, "Your determination refused." With the help of all the friends you've made, you finally manage to defeat the small goat boy. And through him, you learn more of the backstory behind the game. A long time ago, a human child fell into the underground and was saved by the goat boy. He was taken in by the king and Goat Mom, and they became the best of friends, until something happened and the goat boy lost his friend. He then absorbed the human child's soul, becoming a powerful being able to pass through the barrier. He went to the surface to fulfill his friend's last wish. But humans mistook him for the killer and attacked him. Wounded and barely hanging on, the goat boy returned home, collapsed in the garden and turned to dust. His determination, however, flowed into a single golden flower, and that flower became Flowy. In this final fight, the goat boy finally finds peace, letting go of all the pain he had been holding on to. Both the normal and pacifist endings had already been unlocked. You think players would be satisfied by that, but curiosity is just human nature. The violent route, the execution points, Flowy's darker side, all of it pushed players to dig deeper and discover one last ending. And in that ending, they were hit by something beyond words, something that shook them and made them stop and think. So, sitting at his desk, Jason had a serious expression on his face. 3 scenes left. That's what the screen said. In the underground world, the monsters had all been wiped out. Only 3 were still missing in this area. The map was completely empty. The once lively pub was now silent and dead. And Jason couldn't explain the strange feeling he had. Even though Mirror was the kind of game meant for gentlemen, he was still really curious about Lucas's new game, Undertale. He started the game with no expectations, but the ending had completely shocked him. After getting both the normal and pacifist routes, he grew curious about what people called the genocide route. But now he kind of regretted it. In his last run, he'd killed all the monster friends he'd made, just to meet the requirements of the story. Even Papyrus, that sweet, innocent skeleton who still believed in him, even in his final moments. What a perfect excuse, right? You of all people know how comforting this method can be. But at least we're better than those fake saints who just sit back and watch. Those pathetic ones want to see it too, but they're too scared to do it themselves. The game's narration was full of sarcasm. Still, he didn't stop. Every monster he ran into was taken down in one hit. Until he faced Undyne, captain of the Royal Guard. She appeared by a waterfall, jumping in to shield a tiny bean-shaped monster from his attack. As the captain, she had always protected the monsters of the underground, but now she said she'd let them all down. And just as she was about to fall, the music swelled. The wind howled and a white flash filled the screen. Undyne the Undying had arrived. This hero rebuilt herself through the determination to save the world. As the powerful theme battle against a true hero kicked in, Jason felt nothing but irony. The monsters were the true heroes of the story. And the character he controlled was doing what the monsters were supposed to be doing. It was the toughest boss fight in the game so far. After struggling to take down Undyne, he pushed forward, eventually reaching a familiar place. The castle throne room, covered in gold, and up ahead a familiar figure was waiting. Before this, Sans would normally judge the player's actions. But now, it's no more dialogue. Just a fight. What a beautiful day, huh? Birds are singing, flowers are blooming. On days like these, people like you burn in hell. Right after those words, a wave of attacks came crashing in like a flood, instantly killing Jason, who had no way to defend himself. He kept trying over and over. And finally, just when he was about to beat Sans in the game seemed to think of something. He stayed completely still during his turn. But in the end, Sans still lost. Jason took the chance while Sans was resting, moved quietly into attack range, and struck a surprise blow that killed Sans. Then Flowey showed up, but this time, unlike in the normal ending, Flowey was terrified of the main character and begged for its life. The next second, 8 slashes in a row chopped it into pieces. Everything seemed to be over. But just then, someone appeared and completely shocked Jason. Chara, the first human who ever fell into the underground, had been awakened from death. 2 options showed up: destroy the world or don't destroy it. Looking at the pitch-black void and the creepy Chara, Jason felt a heavy weight pressing on him. At first, he just wanted to see what the ending was like. He regretted it halfway through, but didn't stop. And now that regret was even stronger. So he chose no. But right after that, Chara's expression turned cold and sinister. You seem to be mistaken. When did you get to decide anything? As Chara's voice echoed, a flash of the knife appeared. The screen shook violently, and rows of blood-red, 9999, damage numbers filled the screen. Then the whole game force closed by itself. So this is the genocide ending. Sitting in front of the computer, Jason took a deep breath and pressed his lips together. Chapter 24, this is clearly the player's love. It had been quite a while, but Jason still couldn't get over the genocide ending. He only understood part of the game's story. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that he felt extremely down. The genocide ending made him feel absolutely terrible. Yes, he regretted it. Just like when he played Mirror, at first he was excited. Then he lost interest and started to wonder why he even launched the game again. Now that he'd finished Undertale's genocide route, he felt the same way. No matter what, after playing through the genocide path, he truly regretted it. He missed the happy scenes from the pacifist route, laughing with friends, seeing Undyne burn down the kitchen, hearing Papyrus's silly jokes, and eating Goat Mom's pie. I'll do another perfect save file and give this game a proper ending. Recalling all those memories, Jason took a deep breath and reopened the game. He wanted to play through the perfect pacifist ending again. And now, with experience from before, Jason was much more skilled. He remembered most of the monsters, so he could pick all the right answers without thinking. Finally, after beating a Sreel and watching the sunset, a soft smile appeared on Jason's face. No matter what, it was all over. But the next second, the game screen left him completely frozen. It was a dark night, and the main character was asleep in their room. Just then, the door quietly opened. Toriel walked in with a butterscotch cinnamon pie, and gently placed it on the floor before quietly closing the door again. It looked warm and peaceful, until in the next moment, the seemingly asleep main character suddenly sat up in bed. It was Chara's face, wearing a creepy and evil smile. The next moment, a sinister and wicked laugh came through the headphones. The character left the room, and a black and white photo appeared. It was a picture of the protagonist and all their friends from the underground. But now, everyone except the protagonist had a blood-red X over their head. Then the screen went black. Sitting in front of his computer, Jason's eyes were wide open. He had only read a few guides on how to trigger the genocide route, but now he finally understood why the post's author had said, "You'd better not go down the genocide path, or you'll regret it." He finally understood some of the strange comments he saw in the game reviews. When did it become your turn to decide how this world works? Chara's words seemed to echo in his ears again. Jason stared blankly at the Undertale title screen. He could already feel the deeper meaning behind this game, or maybe it was better to say, the malice. Like many other games, you hurt the monsters, then delete the save file and start a new one, acting like nothing ever happened and going back to being friends with them again. Ha, are you kidding me? Stop dreaming. It's like a broken mirror. Even if you glue it back together, there will still be cracks. Since you chose to slaughter the monsters, how could you possibly go back to being close with them again? In the quiet of night, that bad save you thought you deleted comes back to haunt you, tearing apart your fantasy of peace and kindness. That twisted laugh, the black and white photo. Even though no words were spoken, Jason felt mocked. Mocked by the screen in front of him. It was like someone shouting into his ear through a loudspeaker. Drop the act, you fake nice guy. Isn't there a way to change all of this? Jason looked at the closed game window and pressed his lips together. He logged into an Undertale game forum. Just as he expected, besides posts discussing the game, its characters and the story, there were also many asking about the same problem he had run into. Guys, does anyone know how to get back to the true pacifist ending? Same here, massive regret. I messed around and triggered the genocide route. I want to go back. I know I'm just fooling myself, but I still want to go back. Deleting the game, creating a new account, buying it again with a different profile, it's all useless. Reading all these posts made Jason feel a little better. At least he wasn't the only one. He kept digging through threads until finally, Jason found a clear answer. The corrupted save files overwrite both the cloud save and your system files. You need to do both. Reinstall your system and create a brand new account to buy Undertale again. That'll give you a fresh start, but don't log in with your old account or the corrupted data will come back. So that's how it works. Jason suddenly understood and quickly made a decision. Of course, he wasn't planning to reinstall the system. He had saved a lot of class materials from his teachers in there, and some of them were already impossible to find or download online anymore. Plus, he had always used a single C drive for everything. He never bothered with creating separate partitions. So reinstalling the system was definitely off the table. Now that he knew how it worked, he could just buy the game again using a different computer. So, in the Nebula Games office, Anna looked super excited. We've hit 500,000 copies, and it hasn't even been half a month. On the computer in front of her, the total sales of Undertale across all game stores were displayed. After its great reviews started spreading, almost every major platform put Undertale on their homepage recommendation lists. As for the official platform, its recommendation system runs on big data and tends to be slow, so at best it'll show up there next week. Out of the 500,000 copies sold so far, around 70% came from third-party platforms. But it looks like a lot of players actually bought the game twice, Lucas said as he looked at the data, a bit surprised too. He noticed many of the purchases were from users who had never bought a game before. Undertale was their first. Yeah, a lot of players played the genocide route out of curiosity, then felt so bad about it that they bought another copy just to feel better, Anna said, clearly more invested in the game than Lucas. Isn't that just pretending nothing happened? Said Rachel from nearby. How is that pretending? That's love for our game, Lucas thought for a moment and replied. Let's publish the sales numbers now, give the hype another push. As he said that, Lucas logged into his official blog account. Thanks to all the buzz and Undertale's rave reviews, his follower count had finally passed 300,000. Still nothing compared to those big-name game devs with millions of fans, but at least he was getting noticed. And more importantly, under his profile, the description finally had some real detail. Game developer best known for Undertale. Before that, it was just the little lightning badge with 5 words, game developer. Even though Mirror had crazy high sales, its genre was pretty niche. Chapter 25, 1 million sales. Thanks to all the players for your support, Undertale has now sold over 500,000 copies. Right after Lucas posted that on his blog, a bunch of indie game devs and media folks who followed him were stunned. Why? Because they'd seen a similar post not long ago. The game passed 100,000 sales just 3 days after release. Now, barely a week later, it was already at 500,000. That growth was insane. And just like that, the internet was filled with a new wave of articles about Undertale. 500,000 copies sold in 10 days, rating hits 9.7. A must-play, a masterpiece of indie gaming. Breaks the rules of RPGs, a whole new kind of game. A game that hits you hard. For many indie game developers in the industry, some of whom hadn't paid much attention before, this was when they started seriously looking into Undertale. Good reviews alone might not mean much, but now the game had real sales numbers to back it up. Clearly, this kind of game had a market. And for the media, most of them had already written about Undertale, so they just reused the same articles with a new headline. Done. All the gaming media were full of praise. After all, Undertale was just that explosive. It had both great reviews and strong sales, and the overall quality was basically flawless. With its unique metagame design, it amazed countless players and game designers. A game like this, people couldn't even find a way to criticize it if they tried. Thanks to the media buzz, Undertale's popularity started skyrocketing, even though it had already sold over 500,000 copies. Still, with that kind of reputation and buzz, 500,000 sales clearly wasn't the end for this game. And with the growing hype, even the bystanders who were just watching started flooding Bell's official blog. But unfortunately, all of Bell's past posts had already been deleted. He even turned off comments on his page. Basically, he wasn't exactly well liked by the general public. Now that Undertale had gone viral, whether people liked him or just wanted to stir things up, they weren't going to let him off the hook. Especially those who had played Mirror before, they were ready for war. Even if Bell had deleted his posts and closed comments, Lucas' old posts were still up. So a bunch of players started spamming replies under Lucas' posts, tagging Bell. At Bell, Mr. Bell, hurry and criticize Undertale. Games are art, right? How can a game like this be allowed to show off like that? At Bell, Mr. Bell, come out and say something. Blossom should be able to crush Undertale, right? What, it's only sold 50,000. No way, your games are true art. The problem must be that these players don't understand them, not that your games suck. At Bell, Mr. Bell, keep going, you talked so big before. Under Lucas, few blog posts, it was all at Bell comments. Some of the more sarcastic ones had even racked up thousands of likes. And Bell right now. 2 words, playing dead. Honestly, he didn't want to. But he had no choice. His whole strategy had always been, hit where they're weak. If your sales are better than mine, I'll talk about reviews. If your reviews are better, I'll talk about art. If you're more artistic, I'll talk about sales. And if that fails, I'll shamelessly compare game length. Basically, I just compare whatever I'm better at. But now, that doesn't work anymore. He'd lost in every single category. What's he gonna say? His Blossom costs $15, $5 more than Undertale. So Bell decided to play dead. He didn't believe Lucas could make another hit like this anyway. So, with the whole gaming scene watching, Undertale's numbers just kept going up. Thanks to Undertale's great reputation, sales growth remained steady. Even when Lucas announced that Undertale had sold over 500,000 copies, sales kept climbing. By August 15th, exactly 1 month since launch, total sales had passed 1 million, something Mirror had never achieved. 1 million in the first month, this news shocked indie game devs everywhere. At $10 per copy, even if most sales came from third-party platforms, Lucas still easily made over 10 million in revenue that month. Not to mention, during this time, the DLC for Mirror also came out and sold pretty well. But putting Mirror aside, the sales of Undertale clearly came from its strong story and clever design. That got tons of game designers trying to break down what made Undertale work so well. For a new studio like Nebula Games, the success of Undertale brought both fame and profit. Compared to the previous world, the version of Undertale in this parallel world managed to hit 1 million sales in its first month just from the local market alone. Lucas made a few notes about that. First is the environment. Just like in his past life, where console games were niche in the country and mobile and PC dominated, the same thing applies here. But the game market in this parallel world is way bigger than in his last life. Even though the old world claimed to have 700 million gamers, that number was full of fluff. In this world, even ignoring overseas markets, the local numbers are already crazy. After all, this country still has the biggest population in the world. Second, compared to the old version, the graphics in Lucas's Undertale got a big upgrade. In the past, Undertale was just a solo indie project funded by crowdfunding. He had little money and few people to help. But for a game, good visuals are always a plus, never a minus. There are definitely players who will skip a game because it looks too bad. But there's no one who avoids a game because it looks too good. So far, the sales of Undertale have already made Lucas more than happy. As for the international market, since the rules here are different from his past world, he hasn't really thought about that in the short term. Mirror didn't even pass the local review process, so it could only be released on overseas platforms. Even though it was official, it was a very different case from Undertale. Undertale had already been released on local platforms. Chapter 26: What's Next? With Undertale earning both great reviews and great sales, the term meta suddenly caught the attention of tons of designers in the industry. If we're only talking about story, Undertale is definitely solid, but that alone wouldn't have earned this level of praise and success. Once the meta element was added though, everyone who played it had only one thing to say. It blew them away. It wasn't just indie game developers paying attention. Even mid to high-level designers and people in the VR scene were taking a good look at Undertale. Because in a way, it taught the entire industry a lesson. It showed everyone what meta design really means, and how it can be built into a game in a natural way. But while a lot of designers were focused on this, Lucas, on the other hand, was just relaxing. Undertale's success really brought him both name and money. He got it all. In the office, Lucas held a bottle of Want milk in one hand and stared at the system UI screen that only he could see. Still not that great. Even though this gave more points than Mirror, I only got enough for 2 10 pulls. After removing the leftover, he had about 2.1 million points, just enough for 21 draws. Compared to Mirror, Undertale really did give more, but still not a huge amount. He thought through the reason behind it. Points only counted if players paid for the game, and personally felt strong emotions while playing. Simply put, they had to spend money and feel something deeply. That's what generated points. Just watching didn't count, no matter how shocked they were. The most powerful emotional moment in Undertale, other than the first meta twist, came from the genocide route. But very few people were actually willing to play that route. Especially after videos and walkthroughs came out, a lot of players just couldn't bring themselves to do it, and chose to watch instead. So most of the points came from the first-time meta shock players felt during their own runs. While thinking it over, Lucas started drawing from the prize pool. He had a total of 2.1 million points, so he didn't bother with 10 pulls. There weren't any guarantees for an SSR or any bonus for doing 10 at once anyway. He just did single pulls. They say single pulls bring miracles, plus they kind of feel more meaningful. Still, could they change the golden flash animation? Watching the golden light flash again, Lucas felt nothing inside. As the light faded, it revealed a basic, story plus 1 skill book. The brightest golden glow for the most boring item, way to go. He sighed, then tapped through all the rest in one go. After 21 pulls, Lucas figured maybe he should have washed his hands before doing it. Aside from 2 memory capsules, everything else was just regular skill books, not a single rare one. And as for the types, there was art, music, story, level design, game balance. He got all the basic ones. He took a sip of milk, sighed at his bad luck, and used up all the skill books before closing the system. He opened the official engine platform on his PC, logged into the Magic City Game Division's backend, and checked his account access. Compared to the 1024 access level he had before, Lucas now had access to 2048 resources, basically double. Clearly, even though he hadn't gotten any formal promotion, the game division had noticed the success of Undertale and bumped up his developer tier. Next, I need to start thinking about the next game, Lucas murmured, leaning back in his chair, looking a bit torn. A game. Lucas ruled that out right away. It just wasn't realistic. He didn't have the resources, people, funding, or even the current skill level to take on a full-blown AAA project. After all, small-budget games rely on creativity and story, while AAA games demand an all-around performance. So for now, Lucas decided to stick with small-scale, low-budget titles. At the same time, he'd work on building a solid team and getting Nebula games fully up and running. After all, the whole company right now only had 3 people making games: Anna, Rachel, and Lucas himself. Now that there was some money, hiring new team members was a must. He also wanted to keep racking up points and improving his skills. As for making pay-to-win games, Lucas wasn't considering that at the moment. That could seriously damage both his and Nebula Games' reputation. And the huge success of Undertale proved one thing: this parallel world's gaming market was totally different from the one in his past life. Even with buy-once games, you could still turn a solid profit, so Lucas was all in on quality-first games. So, in the meeting room, Lucas briefly shared the success of Undertale and the Mirror DLC with the team. He also confirmed the next direction for the company, including expanding departments and hiring more staff. They discussed some internal policies too, and as the boss, Lucas couldn't help but throw in a couple of pep talks. He had to admit, giving people hope and motivation felt way better than being the one getting fed empty promises. At that moment, Lucas finally understood why so many bosses in his past life loved giving long speeches and false hope. It actually felt kind of good. Once all the admin and HR matters were handled, only Anna and Rachel stayed behind in the meeting room to talk about the games. "So are we going to work on a sequel to Undertale next?" Anna asked, her face full of excitement for the future. This was the kind of game industry she had dreamed of. Rachel, sitting nearby, looked just as thrilled. At first, she joined partly because of the connection between Lucas and Anna, and partly because working on a game felt interesting, like something with potential. But now, it wasn't just potential, it was full of promise. Especially when she saw fan-made stories online that mixed Undertale with Mirror, it gave her a strange feeling. After all, she had worked on both projects. She used to be the one drawing the content, and now she was seeing other people draw from her work. Hearing Anna's question, Lucas smiled and nodded. There's definitely a new project, but it's not a sequel to Undertale, and it's not going to be a meta-style game either. Not a sequel to Undertale, and not even a meta game. Anna and Rachel were both stunned. Chapter 27, the next game. Anna and Rachel looked completely confused. You're not making a sequel to Undertale, and you're not making another meta game either. Anna just couldn't wrap her head around it. Rachel felt the same way. Right now, the media is still filled with reviews and articles about Undertale. On game dev forums, where many industry professionals hang out, there's a ton of discussion analyzing the design and structure of Undertale. This new kind of element really seemed like it could become a trend. Even some studios and designers had already publicly announced that they were starting projects inspired by meta concepts. And now Lucas was saying he wasn't going to do that anymore. If word got out, it would shock a lot of people. Before Undertale, no one really cared about meta in games. Normally, with a hit like this, the smart move would be to strike while the iron's hot, like how Mirror got DLC soon after. At the very least, launch a brand new meta-style game. In fact, Rachel and Anna had already talked about it in private. They thought their next project might be a prequel to Undertale. After all, the stories of the little goat and Chara in the game were only briefly touched on, never fully explored. And now Lucas was telling them there would be no sequel to Undertale, not even another meta game. It's not the right fit, Lucas explained, and meta as a concept is very limited. Undertale hit hard because players didn't see it coming, they weren't mentally ready, and most of them had no idea what meta even was. If we release another meta game now, it definitely won't have the same impact as Undertale. In fact, because of those first impressions, players might think the quality is going downhill. Lucas explained this clearly to the two of them. Others might not get it, but Lucas understood meta games very well. In his original timeline, meta games were nothing new anymore. Isekai, the Stanley Parable, Pony Island, and the one Lucas chose to develop, Undertale. These were all standouts. But the top sellers were Undertale and Isekai. The Stanley Parable, which was actually the one that introduced meta to many players, didn't sell as well as those two later titles. And Pony Island, a lot of players had never even heard of it. The main reason is simple: meta doesn't work well as the main selling point. If you look closely, you'll see that isekai mixed in a lot of action gameplay. Undertale, though it turned RPGs on their head, was really a mix of RPG mechanics and bullet hell gameplay. Both Undertale and isekai used meta elements to support the main game. But Pony Island and the Stanley Parable relied heavily on meta, with very little else backing it up. Meta can absolutely blow players away when used right. But it's better as a supporting element, something that adds flavor and creates chemistry with the rest of the game. Even in his previous life, many big titles followed this idea. Like the Metal Gear series, with bosses like Psycho Mantis who could read the player's inputs. Like the final ending in Nier Automata, where the player's save file is used to help others, that's another example of a meta element. These kinds of things are meta in nature, but they're more like supporting features than the core of the game. The reason Undertale became such a success wasn't just because of its meta stuff. After Lucas finished explaining, Rachel and Anna still looked a little lost. They understood, but not completely. Still, there was one thing they did get. Making another meta game probably wouldn't make much money, and might not even be well received. If more and more game studios start adding meta elements, players might just get sick of it. So what kind of game should we make next? Anna asked Lucas. We'll go for something small for now, kind of like a transition project, and we'll need to grow the team too, Lucas replied. As for the type, check this out. He opened the laptop next to him and went to a website, the official game division homepage. Rachel and Anna looked on, still a bit confused, as Lucas opened up a public notice. Science is the driving force behind human progress. With its rapid development, our lives are changing in huge ways. This time, the game division is holding a sci-fi game competition under the theme, Technology Changes Life. 1. Who can enter? All game designers in the country. 2. Requirements. Any platform is fine. The theme should be positive and meaningful. 3. Organizer. Hosted by the National Game Division, with both expert judging and player voting to ensure fairness. 4. Awards. Based on the total number of entries, there will be 1 first prize, 3 second prizes, 6 third prizes, and several honorable mentions. Winning entries will be featured and promoted on the official platform homepage. Winners will also be recognized as outstanding game designers, as a form of encouragement. Registration is open from September 1st to 5th. The event ends at the end of September. Are we really joining this? Anna asked, clearly surprised. She had heard of the event before. Even though it's open to all game designers, most of the participants are indie developers or small studios. Of course, there are real benefits. After all, it's hosted by the game division, which handles game approval, designer titles, engine development, and game policy. They're basically in charge of everything. Getting visibility from them can only be a good thing. And being promoted on the homepage of the official platform, that's a huge win. That platform is one of the biggest in the country. As for why big studios don't join, well, for them, this kind of contest is a waste of time. Their high-budget projects already get more than enough attention. And those big-budget games are mainly made for profit. Profit-focused games often rely on things that get attention. Even if you don't count violence or fanservice, stuff like multiple love interests and harem setups, that kind of content wouldn't look good in a government-sponsored event. So naturally, big-budget games don't enter. Most of the entries come from indie devs and small studios, though some studios owned by major companies also take part. Chapter 28, To the Moon. But the event deadline, only about 2 weeks away, can we really make it? Anna asked doubtfully. Even though registration doesn't start until early September. This announcement had already been posted back in June. That means most game studios or devs aiming for this contest have already been working on their projects for 2 or 3 months. Yeah, and for a sci-fi game, we probably don't have nearly enough people right now, Rachel chimed in. After working on both Mirror and Undertale, Rachel wasn't a total beginner anymore. Even if a sci-fi game isn't going to be some huge production, with just the 3 of them and such a tight deadline, it seemed impossible. 2 weeks is plenty, This game will be even simpler than Undertale, Lucas said with a smile. A game even simpler than Undertale. Anna and Rachel both stared at him, completely stunned. Is Undertale a great game? Of course it is. But is Undertale a big game? Not at all. And now Lucas says this new game is even smaller than Undertale. So what kind of game is it then? Smaller than Undertale, can it even place in the competition? Anna asked, skeptical. Rachel stayed quiet and looked at Lucas, waiting for his answer. It's about participating. Whether it wins or not doesn't depend on size, it depends on whether it can move the players and judges, Lucas replied with a smile. Hearing that, Anna was speechless. So it's like Undertale. But not a meta game, Anna guessed, turning to Lucas. The dev team only had 3 people, and the time limit was 2 weeks. Judging by the genre, you could kind of guess it. With such a short time frame, even by indie standards, making a game usually means doing something like Undertale. Pretty much, Lucas nodded with a smile. There were a lot of directions he could have taken for the new game. But based on the current progress and the point system, as soon as Lucas saw the event announcement, an idea popped into his head. Seeing Rachel and Anna's curious faces, Lucas, still sitting in his seat, smiled and gave a brief explanation. In the future, there's a company that uses a special machine to enter people's memories and change them. But these artificial memories aren't temporary, they're permanent. That means once the person wakes up, their new memories clash with their real ones, causing confusion. So the technology is only used on people who are dying, those with regrets, who want to fulfill a wish by changing their memories, letting them die without regrets. The game begins with 2 employees of the company, Dr. Rosaline and Dr. Watts, helping a dying man named Johnny fulfill his life's dream, to go to the moon. The game Lucas wanted to make was called To the Moon. It sounded like a sci-fi game. But in reality, it's a story-driven game, a love story. It's a very small game. In its previous life, it was even made using a simple engine called RPG Maker. And there's no combat at all. The gameplay is all dialogue and puzzles. Yet this simple little game moved countless players to tears. It's what you'd call a tough guy crying kind of game. To the Moon also won a ton of awards. In 2011, it beat out big titles like Catherine and Portal 2 to win GameSpot's Best Story Award. It also won Metacritic's Best Game and Wired's Best Game that year. In Steam's 2017, I'm Not Crying, It's Just Something in My Eye category, it was a top nominee. Its creator, Kang Gao, even appeared on CCTV's show The World Speaks to Me. For Lucas, choosing this game was partly because of the sci-fi elements, it fit the event theme. But also, he wanted to hit the players right in the feels with this one. Undertale and Mirror just didn't have the same emotional punch anymore. As for winning any awards, Lucas just went with the flow. Honestly, calling To the Moon a sci-fi game was a bit of a stretch. It's small in scope, but its emotional power made Lucas stick with it. He had also considered rage games like Jump King or Getting Over It. But in the end, he gave up on those. Sure, they can definitely stir up player emotions. But the rules of the event required that players actually spend money for it to count. If you don't have money, choosing this kind of game is basically a gamble. If you win, it's off to the hotel for some fun. If you lose, you're stuck carrying cargo at the docks. Of course, that's only if you're broke. But if you do have money, and with a bit of marketing and guidance, this type of game could easily become a huge hit. After all, live streaming is super popular in this parallel world. And these games are basically tailor-made for streaming. But even if they go viral, not many people actually play them, so Lucas wouldn't get much emotional engagement from players. Plus, some of these games are pretty frustrating. Right now, what Lucas needs most is a good reputation. So after thinking about it for a bit, he decided to pass on those games and instead chose To the Moon. Great reviews and emotional impact for players, he gets both at once. So, after briefly explaining the game to Rachel and Anna, Lucas went back to his office to start writing the concept draft for To the Moon. Of course, concept draft here mainly means the core story. To help with that, Lucas also used a memory capsule to dig deep into his own memories. He also wrote down the sheet music for a few classic piano tracks from To the Moon. With his current level of music skill and having a reference, it wasn't too hard. The rest was just improvements to make the game feel smoother to play and look better visually. After all, the original To the Moon was a pixel game made with RPG Maker, and its clunky controls and visuals were its biggest drawbacks. But with the technology in this parallel world, 2 weeks is more than enough to make To the Moon. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story.